Welcome to the World of Ability Podcast Network. My name is Sue Roscoff, and this is time to go ahead and revolutionize your marketing. You know it, we're here every Friday at 5 o'clock, live at 5 with John Petros Sr. John, come on in, and I'm so excited to see what you have in store for us today. I'm getting some wonderful guests in the wings here, so welcome, welcome. How are you?
I'm doing great, and you, Sue?
Wonderful.
All right. So, folks, welcome to Revolutionize Your Marketing. And like Sue said, I do have a couple of great guests tonight. Let's bring them both in here. Avenice and Ella. How we doing, ladies?
Hello, great to
Hi,
see you.
I think
good
it's
to
a
be
ladies'
here.
night tonight. All right. Avenice, why don't we start off with you? Let people know who you are, where you're from, and how you got to do what you're doing.
Certainly. Thank you. I'm delighted to be here again. I'm Avenice Thompson. I'm a profit acceleration strategist. I'm in the Sunshine State of Florida. And so I know it's summer all over, but you still can't beat the Sunshine State of Florida. As I said, I'm a profit acceleration strategist. Many years ago, during my corporate life, I worked with a lot of small businesses, small vendors, and I realized that there were gaps in their operation. Many of them, even though I was paying them 1.2 million, 2 million, 3 million, they were still suffering. And that's because they weren't managing their cash flow and they weren't actually managing their business the way they ought to. So I realized there was a gap. Reached out to a few of them just to kind of dig a little deeper, find out what's going on. Why do you still have a broken down car if I'm paying you 1.2 million? You know, why can't you pay your bills if I'm paying you 3 million? It must be something is wrong. And then we realized where the gaps were. Fast forward, I assisted them and realized that was my passion. And so I said, I don't want to be in corporate anymore. I want to be helping small businesses. So I jumped in, got certified as a profit acceleration strategist, and realized that, listen, these strategies are the same strategies that the large businesses have been using all along, but small businesses just don't know many of them. Yep.
Okay. And Elia, how let people know who you are, where you're from, and how you get to do what you do.
My name's Alla Kaplan. Um, I started writing a book called, I'm a former stripper, and started writing a book called The Life of a Jewish Stripper. And then almost 2 years ago, I decided to start a podcast called The Jewish Stripper Raw and Real with Alla Kaplan. And so I'm now a writer and a podcaster. My book has not come out yet. It hasn't been published. It's in the process of being edited. I'm possibly working with a promotion house that builds up authors. And I'm new to, coaching or business strategy, entrepreneurship, but of course, my goal in the end is to monetize everything,
Right.
sell my book, get my podcast monetized. And I do a lot of different topics on my podcast. I don't just stick with stripping or the world of stripping or being an ex-stripper. I'm a Jewish woman, so I have a lot of opinions on the current politics in the world, shall we say, and being a unapologetically Jewish and unapologetically Zionist. I speak up for those who couldn't speak up for themselves on October 7th. But in the end, what my podcast about, I just recently kind of changed the motto a little bit to not just the stripping part of it, but stripping down the BS to the raw and real conversation. So whoever comes on my show as a guest, we're going to strip it down to the raw and real.
All right. So questions. Javier, back to you. What are some of these little things what are some of the places where you're finding these gaps at for business?
Certainly, my goal is always to help businesses generate profit using no-cost strategies. And that means we dig deep to find the money that they're actually leaving on the table in their business. And during my time working with businesses, there are like 40 different strategies. And I kid you not, it may sound a lot, but as we go through, you realize they're right there in front of you. But I like to go after the low-hanging fruits, the one that can actually bring the quickest amount of results and transformation for any business. So things like, of course, cutting costs, but your market dominating position. Yes, it sounds like a lot of words, but trust me, it's just simply what differentiates you from the other person. Why should I come to you? John, you have a marketing agency. Why should I come
Yeah.
to you? So those are some of the strategies. Your upselling, your downselling strategy, your cross-selling. How about your pricing? Many persons don't know how to price their goods and their services. We have persons who are doing service businesses and they're pricing per the hour. No, you should be charging for the transformation you actually bring and not for
Right.
the hour, right?
Yeah.
And so they're
Yeah.
leaving money on the table. And so that's how I really uncover those no-cost strategies.
Yeah, that's like me with my marketing. I'm willing to work with whatever budget small businesses have. Kind of gives me an edge over some of the other marketers that have set prices. But,
Exactly.
and again, it's another way of helping the little people
Mhm.
coming down to their level that they can actually afford.
Meeting them where they are.
Yeah, meeting them where they are and working up with them.
With them. Exactly.
If they can only afford a little help, then I'll see what they need to help the most and start there.
Exactly. Exactly.
And so basically, we're both in the same boat. And so, Alia, to you, what kind of transition is it going from being a former stripper to now having a podcast? What was the transition in between? You're muted.
It was 30 years in the process. The podcast, honestly, almost 2 years ago in August of 24, I woke up one day and decided to start a podcast. So I had been a stripper actually 30 years ago, more than 30 years ago. So when I was writing my book, which is a memoir, and a lot of it is about trauma that I went through as a child, trauma that I went through as an adult, not just in the stripping industry, but I was also married and in an abusive marriage. So a lot of the book, a lot of that is about my identity as a Jewish person that was born in Russia, and the anti-Semitism that my family experienced back in Russia. And then, just transitioning to a rebellious teenager and then marrying a narcissist, and having come from the background that I thought stripping gave me some insight into human nature. I'm not a psychiatrist, I'm not a psychologist. I don't think I need a degree to have some insight into human nature. And so I started, the podcast was going to be called Raw and Real. And then I Googled Raw and Real, and there were many, many, many other Raw and Reals. And so I decided to
Yeah.
separate myself from the Raw and Real because no one knew who Alla Kaplan was. And so I renamed it the Jewish Stripper. Yes, it was a marketing tool, make people wake up and go, oh, what is this about? And I did get, some um, comments on videos saying, it's boring. Where are the strippers? So so I was doing, I had guests who were doing advocates for mental health and men's mental health. I had a lady from Nigeria that was a mental health advocate as being one of my first guests. And so we were talking about men's mental health, and then we did an episode about finding gratitude amidst depression. And so after I saw this comment about, where are the strippers? It's so boring. And I said, okay, I'm going to do an episode called All About Stripping. And I did the episode All About Stripping, which got like, I don't know, 7,000 views on YouTube or something crazy like that. Apparently, what people really want to see, if they see the word stripping, they want to see strippers. So, so, but it's just gone into a a podcast with purpose. So the stripper, the Jewish stripper, Raw and Real, we're stripping down the BS down to the real purpose of the conversation. And so that's the transition. Never meant to be a public speaker, never meant to be initially. When I started writing the book, it was almost like a cathartic for myself to get a lot of the things out of my system. But I had posted some chapters on a website called medium.com, where I've written some articles as well. And so people responded I had people, women especially, respond to things I wrote about narcissists, things I wrote about, getting yourself out of an abusive situation. People responded, and people responded when I did episodes, when I started the podcast. Me and my friend at first did the first episode we did was called Why Do People Cheat? We asked the $1,000,000 question, why do people cheat? And so that got a lot of response as well. We went live on Facebook and it got a lot of response. And so I started doing mental health, psychology, kind of psychiatry, the diving into human nature. And that's pretty much where I've stayed. I don't want to paint myself into one particular niche because I heard someone say a very insightful thing. They said, you are the niche. You don't need a niche, you are the niche. And so I said, wow, that really was a light bulb moment. And I said, oh, you're right. I'm the niche. I bring the conversation to the table. So no matter what the topic may be, and people will ask, what is your podcast about? And I'll say jokingly, whatever pops into my head. And so that was the transition from author to podcaster, and still working on
Yeah.
the author part.
Yeah. I go along with the author part because I just recently came out in a collaborative book
Mm-hmm.
with 42 other authors, and they've continuing on with 2 series of books. One's a series of collaborative books, different topics, but the other one is they have a saying where you are an expert at what you do simply by calling yourself an expert. So they came out with a series of books that they call the Expert Series. 3 years ago, I started a book myself. And last year and a half, it's been sitting on my desk, doing nothing. And being in this other book has put it back in my head to get this book out. And I'm actually working on the second book too. Totally the other direction. It's a kid's bedtime story book. So from a business book to a kid's bedtime story book, it's like, okay, I'm at each end. Now I've got to squeeze in. So I understand about the author part, which is taking a while. But yeah, so this is what I love about doing this podcast. I generally end up with something connected with my guests, which I guess is a good thing. But it, again, like I keep telling people, that only goes to show you, you never know who you get on these platforms, whether it's social media platforms or alignable, any platform. Ev- Ev- Evelyn, getting back to you. Since this podcast is based on marketing,
Yes.
how do most people get a hold of you? How do they find you, or do you find them?
Sure. So I have a website and it's YourBizNess businessbar.com. Yourbusinessbar.com. My email is info at YourBizNess bar.com. I'm also on LinkedIn. I am on Facebook and Instagram, all using Your Business Bar as the handles. So I'm there. I'm pretty much open. And for those persons who'd like to have a one-on-one, then they can always just go to the website. They can select a time where we can have a conversation.
Okay, and Alia, how do you find your guests for your podcasts?
Honestly, there's a in the RSS where I get my podcast hosted, rss.com. There is a community called Slack. It's a community of podcasters. And so I found some guests like Edna White that connected you and I. We connected through that, but I've also been finding guests on Facebook groups. Need a guest, find a guest, be a guest. There's so many different groups on Facebook. So I've connected with a lot of people that way. Initially, when I started my podcast, it was just, I started with friends and family. That's what was recommended to me. Start with the people that you know. And for instance, one of my first guests was my mom. I asked my mom to, tell us about growing up Jewish in Russia, in communist Russia. So I was actually, a lot of people responded to that. They found it very interesting because, like I said, there was a lot of anti-Semitism. People used to say to her things like, you know, Hitler was doing the right thing, he didn't finish the job. She heard things like that when she was young, growing up in Russia, or not even growing up, but as an adult. And so that was a very powerful episode. And but now I'm connecting on Alignable, that the website Alignable that you and I connected on through another connection, and the
Yeah.
Facebook podcasting, the Facebook groups for podcasters.
Yeah. So, so folks listening, there's a couple good prime examples of how to find people that you're looking to get a hold of. There's plenty of ways out there. Same thing with my marketing. I've got multiple ways now to help people get their businesses out. Whether social media, radio, live stream TV, and even this way, podcast. All my guests get their businesses promoted out there. If anybody out there who's listening or will be listening to the recording, if you want to get a hold of these ladies, you can watch the replays and get their information out again. Want to see some of my previous podcasts? Go to YouTube and just type in Mill City Marketing MA, name of my business. It'll open up my page, and most of my podcasts will be there. I've had some very interesting guests. Most of them are people from Alignable, but some of them aren't, including a 14-year-old girl who had the most views.
Oh,
Wow.
She's very intriguing with
That's
her
good.
conversations. Which is why I had her on my podcast. She's this girl's known since the age of 5 what she wanted to do in life. Her grandfather, who I knew pretty well, I used to bowl with him, was on hospice when this girl was 5. And she was so impressed with the nurse, she looked up at her mother and said, I want to do what she does. And this girl has stuck it out. She's researched it. She knows what's involved mentally, physically, and emotionally dealing with hospice patients. And that's what she wants to do, is work with hospice patients, both adults and children.
Oh,
There are children on hospice also.
yeah.
And she's even started a group at school with her friends. Every spare time that they have in school, they spend working with special needs kids.
That's impressive.
And a year ago, Easter, we were at one of my sister-in-law's houses, and she was carrying on a conversation with somebody, and 14, and the things that she was saying, the topic was how the brain works. And the things that this 14-year-old was saying were so intriguing. Halfway through the hour-long conversation, I said to her, go, Grace, I need you on my podcast. 2 weeks later, she was on my podcast. Now she's got the most views.
wow.
And so that's kind of like my little ad in the show. But getting back to you ladies now, what kind of Avenice, what kind of businesses is it that you're finding that need the help the most?
Thank you for that. You know, before I answer your question directly, I want to say there are lots of small businesses that are really finding it challenging. And sadly, many of them are suffering in silence, and perhaps afraid to show how vulnerable they are. So you'll have a conversation with them and everything is going good, everything is going good, but you know things are not going well. And so they're refusing to seek the help, but they're suffering in silence. But once you're able to break the ice, you can actually see where the gaps are and you can actually begin to help them. I see many persons in the service industry, and I say service broadly, but those handymen, they're suffering, and why they're suffering? Some of them because they're just doing everything themselves. They're not getting the right strategies. But a lot of times you
Right.
ask more questions and you realize their clients are now trying to do a lot of things alone by themselves instead of calling them. They're going to YouTube, they're looking at it, they're doing a lot of, different courses themselves, they're fixing things themselves instead of calling them. And so the handyman, I had a discussion with one the other day, and I said, well, maybe it's time for you to diversify a bit, you know? Don't call yourself a handyman anymore, or try to offer something else, so that you can actually differentiate yourself again, but begin to actually make some money. But in terms of who I serve specifically, yes, I am my niche, just like Ella said. So I have decided not to niche down because those persons who are under $1 million, they're really suffering and waiting just to meet that that threshold, make their first million. They're the ones who need the most support, and those are the ones I really want to serve because their family need them more than anything else. They have to be able to feed their families. And so that's where my sweet spot is. That's my passion. And it doesn't matter what industry, as long as you've been in business for a year or more and you're under that 1 million, 5 million is great. But that's my passion. Those who are trying to make their first million, because I know the
Yeah.
money is sitting right there. If they only got the support, if they only got the guidance, if they only got the systems in place to get them to that next level, they would get there.
Yeah. I agree with that. That's how I feel too. That's why I will help any type of business. Um,
Yes.
and I've had people along the way say, "Oh, you have to niche down. You have to niche down. Pick something particular." I can't. I'm not that type of person to stick with one type of business. Um, if every marketer did that, there would be people left by the wayside that would end up
Exactly.
having to end their business.
Yeah.
And my goal is to help them prevent from doing that. An example of that too is I have a buddy who just hooked up with a company where they're the only ones, as far as I know, that in a company that has a system where for businesses wants to sell, businesses that try to sell, own entrepreneurs who try to sell their businesses are very hard to do. Very few of them actually succeed in selling it. They have a system, instead of selling, leasing the business.
Mm-hmm.
The present owner will have nothing to do with the business. They just have a monthly income coming in.
Yes,
So it's like selling, but it's not.
it's not.
They still have the money, a little bit of money coming in every month that they don't have to do anything for, which is a
Right.
great program. And it's the only company, as far as they know, in the country that does it. Elia, Alla, what are some of the best people that you've had on your podcast?
I have had,
I know it's hard to,
I
it's
think
hard to pick, I know.
it's hard to pick because
Yeah,
I didn't start having guests until maybe like 6 months ago or so.
Mm.
And I was just
yeah,
doing my podcast solo and pick a topic and talk about it, or I'd take an article that I had written and read it and talk about it. The guests, I think every guest is special in their own niche, or if they have a niche. But everyone has been so so kind and generous with their time. I had one person who actually had me as one of my first guesting spots. His name is John W. Curran. He has a podcast called A Swift Kick in the Ass. Very great podcast. And he's not necessarily in a niche. Well, he calls it be asinine, his what's the word? His emblem is a donkey, because the donkey keeps going. What he talks about a lot is resilience, which is I talk about resilience a lot. And he talks about, when he says be asinine, it's not, like to be an ass, but it's because a donkey never stops. And so he was extremely generous with his time. He had me do a 2 hour, we went into 2 hours and we didn't even realize it. And he was one of the first people to have me guest. And, he has all kinds of people from all walks of life, and whether they talk about their business or their story as a human being, all of them have some sort of resilience story. But every single one of my guests has been extremely, like I said, just very genuine. The last guest I just had, her name is Judith Catan. She's a lady that lives in the UK that was born a Jew, a secular Jew in Israel, but she had an experience with Jesus. She came to know Christ, but she does not consider herself a Christian or a Catholic. She simply considers herself someone who has accepted Jesus as her savior, as her God, as God, one, in the way of the Trinity. So that was very interesting. And she was just saying that God wants everyone to know his heart. And so that was the most recent guest. And just everyone who has, I can't pick just one particular, because it's very, because everyone is unique. I believe, everyone has a unique story. There's no person on earth that is any and has some kind of story they may sound similar. You may resonate with a guest, you may resonate with someone's story, but you're the only individual on this planet that has your particular story. So I can't pick just one.
Yeah. I had one guest on the end of February. No, actually the mid-February. He actually picked a date of Friday, February the 13th.
Wow.
Which I thought was pretty peculiar, because this person had a near-death experience at the age of 21. And when you hear people talk about near-death experiences, it's as they're walking to the light. His experience was on the other side of the light.
Mm.
He actually got a guided tour of the other side of the light. And he goes into great detail about it. And at the end, he was given a message, and he wasn't asked to bring it back. He was told, you need to tell them death does not exist. And he describes the figure at the end that told him that. And he believes it was God that told him that, face to face with him. Although he couldn't see the face, he said, because it was light coming out, which is why he said that. And that he had a bad reaction to anesthesia and operating. He was out for 7 minutes. But to listen to his story with the details and everything, it sounds like it was more than 7 minutes.
I'll have to
And,
watch it.
He's I never did ask him how old he is, but I would say he's late 50s, early 60s maybe. And all he's been doing is telling the story every chance he has. I found him on someone else's podcast that I was watching. And I went to his website and saw all these videos of his interviews and the podcasts he's been on. And I sent him a message. I said, I find your story very interesting. I'd love to have you on my podcast. He responded back within a day and said, I'd love to be on your podcast. How soon can we do it? Not when, like everybody asks, how soon? Because his whole goal in life now is to get this message out as much as it can. And I still watch the recording of my podcast with him over and over again. That's how intriguing his story is. It still amazes me every time I listen to it. So it's just, sometimes you run into these people in the weirdest ways that turn out good. I'm gonna bring my so-called co-host in because I know he's gonna have some questions for you ladies.
Okay.
Kurt, I know it's your network, but you are my co-host. And I know you're gonna have some questions for these ladies. So come on in, Kurt. There you are.
Here I am. So let's stir up the pot, folks. So Avenice, I want to bring a question to you, building up what Alla is saying about, stripping it to being raw and whatever. I want to use that acumen, what you're doing in trying to help drive profit through distinction and everything that you're speaking to. Can you speak more to, we heard earlier that you were building off of what Alla is presenting, but, as far as being the niche and all that, but how do you see we can use that element of stripping it down to being raw, to make that distinction? Because to me, I think the two of you are bringing about a good point, that we're at this point in time that people want predictability, to know what they're getting. I was on a meeting today where the group was really fighting hard that with their work product, that people didn't have to guess how to get what they want out of it. So Avenice, how do you use this type of stuff to explain to us more about how you work with us to create distinction?
Sure, and it varies based on the type of business. I had a meeting earlier today when we had a similar question, and I used the example of a roofer, right? And someone thinks like, okay, I'm just a roofer. How can I really differentiate myself from other roofers? And the answer is simple. You have to collaborate with other persons, right? And when you're offering, sometimes when you're distinguishing yourself from other businesses, it doesn't mean that you're the only one who's offering the service. It means that you're the one who has presented it to the potential client, but sometimes you have to collaborate. So let's go back on that point with the roofer. They're fixing your roof, right? They destroy your landscaping. Me as the client, I have to go and now hire a landscaper. But if you as a roofer differentiate yourself from all other roofers and say, listen, I'm not just going to fix your roof, I'm going to also protect your landscaping. And because of the collaboration with that landscaper, I have actually been able to deliver a differentiated service to my clients. Because before the roof is done, I make sure that the landscaping is protected. And when it's done, I made sure that it's in either the same form or at least better. So the elements from the roof doesn't destroy your landscaping, because we all know landscaping costs a lot of money. And if you have it well done, the least thing you want to spend additional money to get that done. If I'm just hiring a roofer, I want my roof to be fixed. I don't want to have a landscaping bill at the end of it. So these are some of the ways you can actually work together. So it depends on the business, but the goal is to make sure that you build alliances, joint ventures. If you cannot add that additional service that will differentiate you from others. Not to prolong it much more, but just to give you one more example. If you're a daycare owner, a daycare operator, what differentiates you? Why would I send my child to you as opposed to someone else? You can easily say, I guarantee you that by 2 years old, your child will be reading. How many other daycare centers are actually guaranteeing you that? But in addition to that, I don't just take care of your child. I make sure that the meals are also filled with nutrition, right? I have cameras so you can see the child. There's so many different things. So you have to really dig deep and see what you're offering. Where is the true value? What will move your clients to say, I must do business with that particular person or that particular business?
Yeah, that is great. And you gave me a segue there, Avenice. I appreciate it, because now I can go to Alla and say, Alla, kind of with a little bit of your story. And some people say how we turn our mess into a message. And some of Alla, what you're saying to me, I feel you're today helping me build that out a little bit more. Sometimes we're turning other people's mess into a
Mess.
message, because you're talking about how you understand psychology and stuff like that. So I really see the power in you being your niche and the value you're delivering to us, because I'm working on receiving what you're providing. Like in some conversations, I'd say, some people tell me, hey, Kurt, I'm picking up what you're dropping, type of thing. But Alec, can you describe a little bit more about the intention of what you're offering? I mean, it's there. You already explained it, but like I say, I'm sitting here, I'm wanting to go more into what you're proposing. So can you explain a little bit more about what's possible for us and how you're using what happened to you and with other people to more stay true to yourself, stripping out
Yes.
the raw and like what we want to do? Can you speak to that a little bit?
It's about authenticity.
Yeah.
It's about what no matter whether I'm flying solo and doing the podcast alone, and I'm just giving you a topic and I'm talking about that topic, or what if I have a guest, it's when I say stripping it down to the raw and real, we're taking a topic, and maybe it is often a taboo topic, and a lot of things are taboo. For instance, I just actually did a guest with Edna White of the Keeping It Real podcast that I joined. John hooked us up, or we hooked up. John and I hooked up through her, and we were talking about family trauma, cycle curse breaking last night. And so we were talking about, there's trauma within a family or any traumatic experiences, and the resilience that it takes for people to not just survive. So it's not just about survival, it's about thriving. And so I think the ultimate message of my podcast is probably not just survival. It's not survival of one, and I'm a survivor of sexual child abuse, marital abuse, you name it. So, and the resilience, what resilience really means, and that's what I was talking about with John Curran of the Kick in Your Ass podcast as well. It's not just the survival, it's building yourself, rebuilding yourself. And so a lot of my guests have been about not necessarily just living in survival mode, but moving beyond that. And so if I'm bringing any message to my audience, it's not just about me and my particular experience, my personal lived experience. It's about other people and how they escaped their trauma, how they built their resilience up in themselves, and how they're living through not just a day-to-day moment by moment anymore, but they are building businesses. They are building they are there's actually a Facebook group called Resilient Beyond Measure, and she does like rounds of maybe 13 or 14 people that do maybe 20 to 30 minutes of live on Facebook and talk about their resilience stories. And actually, John, you'd probably be really interested in that group because there's like several people giving their story of their different definition of resilience. And so it probably would interest you a lot because you've got so many people within 1 to 2 hours sharing their stories. But so if there's anything I want people to walk away with from my show, is that me personally, I think resilience is a trait. It's in your DNA. It's a God-given thing. It is something you learn, unfortunately. It is something you learn along the way, but I think it's also within human beings that's something that you can dig deep into and find within yourself when when you are at the point where you feel like, you're on your knees and maybe you've hit rock bottom, and you dig deep and find that resilience, and you can move forward with your life, and not necessarily not live in the past, but learn from the past.
Absolutely. Yeah. So Alla, I'm trying to pull some things together because what you do and what you've decided to do, and I can tell you had that moment at some point in time where you just knew when you come to us, you have this very distinctive thing to go back to Avenice's role in all of this. I think this is a true field day that the two of you happen to be guests on this podcast, and then to look at Revolutionize Your Marketing. And that's what I want to bring it back to, Al, is I want to look at what you're finding in marketing this, because you're offering us to come through a door that, to Avenice's point, people could say, Well, I'm addressing that. I'm hearing it. You're referring to other podcasts, but you're bringing it together, Alla, in a way that I've never seen anybody do before. And it's very powerful. And I want you to reflect, talk to us about how you market on social media, or, how you're even marketing yourself in your podcast. How are you creating this public message that you're catching people out of the blue, and people they can somehow get it, that they come through that door and come into experience the world that you're bringing to us? Because that's a little tricky as far as the way I'm seeing it. How are you doing that?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, the title, the Jewish stripper, raw and real, it kind of, yeah, caught people off guard. And it's kind of meant to, because it's it's um it's not tantalizing, but it's um actually not validating. I'm not validating the lifestyle of stripping, but I'm not saying that I'm ashamed of it either. So it's actually um what's the word? It's not generalizing, but it's saying to people, I'm not trying to, spark the conversation necessarily about the stripping part. I'm trying to spark the conversation about I am in a way saying, this is taboo, and I'm saying to people, I'm looking for a word and I can't seem to pull it out of my head for a second. It's pulling people out of that stereotypical thought. It's challenging. It's challenging society. It's challenging what society thinks of strippers and what they're capable of. That's how I kind of started with that in mind, with my book. When I started to write my book, I also wanted people to challenge people about their norm of what they think strippers are, because in the end, they are someone's daughter, sister, mother, maybe, and so, and like I've told in my story, many women I worked with were studying for a medical degree, studying for a law degree, studying for some sort of degree. Well, or they were just smart enough to save their cash and buy a home and save money to retire on. And so challenging the norms, there's I mean, we've had people like Jennifer Lopez, who played a stripper, got paid to play a stripper. Demi Moore got paid to play a stripper. There is a fascination with this underbelly of society, and there is a challenging this stereotype and the taboo behind it, and saying these women are in they're walking around every day in society, in culture, and I said, at the end of the day, it's just a job. It just happens to be that your office is the strip club. But, there are some of the most intelligent and articulate people that I've ever met. And so I had started with that, and it went on from there. And so I open the conversation for people to have a safe place to talk about in general, topics that are taboo that people may not normally would talk about in another place.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think I give you credit to, in some subtle way, you're a fierce force if you really look at it. Because when you talk about being able to break through these taboo topics and these challenges in the human condition and our culture, custom genetic memory, and all of this, and how you're turning it around to empower a person is absolutely wonderful. I applaud you greatly for the work you do. And I just know that you've got a tribe of people that is just rallying around you. And I see you coming to be a big deal in our world. Like, to me, you're on an uprising, Alla, to be a famous person. I really think when I look at you and I see people who become famous, you have it all sitting right where you are.
Thank you.
It's coming. That's
I
what I
actually came that when I first started, I said I want to be the female Howard Stern.
There you go. That is a great way to put it. I think you are coming out to be exactly that. Yeah. Very good. So Avenice, I want to come to you to say, Alla's here's unique, a very unique way, maybe the most unique you've ever found yet, in how to apply your practice. I want to give you a chance to speak to more of that, to look at that. We spent an hour with Alla, so there's an advantage that we took an hour to get to this point where I'm getting more ahas of what she says. But Avenice, you help us do it more immediately, because a lot of times you got to be able to do it in 20 seconds, right? So can you
Yes.
speak to that a little bit, Avenice? How you help someone like Alla do that, to do it quick and snappy?
Sure. Well, the good thing with Ella is that she already knows who she is. Sometimes you're speaking with a business person and they're still trying to get their feet on the ground. They're still trying to navigate. They're still trying to clarify their offering, exactly what they want. In terms of Ella, clearly she knows who she's targeting, right? And she knows exactly what she's sharing. She knows she's just saying, listen, I'm putting myself out there because this is what I have been through, right? And this is where I was and this is where I am now. And so right away she speaks to that person who's saying, that could be me as well, right? That could be me. So without doing much, she's already engaging a particular audience. Because those of us who may have been through some of what she's been through, it has now, just listening to her at any point in time, you can actually make that transformation. And in anything you should seek to do is create that transformation. And because we can see the transformation in Ella, where she's been, what she's now, how she's speaking, what she's sharing, it says, wow, that could be me as well. That could make a difference in my own space. I've been through something like that, or I've been through what she's been through. I was a stripper myself. Oh, you know what? Maybe I wasn't. But you know what? I was going through a really rough time and I was judged during that journey. People didn't see me for the real power I had. People didn't see me for who I was or what I can do. But you know what? They now see Ella, so that could be me as well. And it's a powerful transformation that can resonate with so many persons.
Absolutely, absolutely. So John, coming back to you, I'm sensing book ideas, all sorts of stuff as marketers, John. I'm sure you're seeing, how this is something that'd be fun to play with ongoing, in your marketing shop, John. John, I'm going to challenge you to keep in touch with these
Yeah.
ladies, because you've got something brewing here that we can't stop it when the show stops. We gotta do a sequel to this or something. What do you think, John?
I think so. Yeah, this is both of these ladies both have great stories that would make great books. And like Ella said, she's working on a book, kind of like a yeah, memoir book. But get that word out there. Wow. But yeah, both you ladies should consider doing other books as well. And the group that I am involved with, so yeah, Built with Purpose Group, that is what they do, is books. And they have a way of doing books that is, number one, less expensive and a lot faster than going to a regular publisher.
Hmm.
I will actually give you both the website that they use. You can look at what they already have in process. It's businesswithpurpose.org.
Mm-hmm.
And you can go to that website and see what they've already got out, what they've already got in process, as well as meet. There's a page on there that they have all the authors, all the books that are already out. They just came out with that series I was saying earlier, the expert series. They just came out with that maybe a month and a half ago. There's 10 of those books out, available on Amazon already. 10 of them in that short a time.
Wow.
These two ladies have put a system together that's incredible. So go to that website and check
it out.
it out. Yeah. I think we're actually at our time frame. Oh, look at that, a little
Thank
over again,
you.
Kurt. Geez.
Thank you for your time and having me. And if somebody does want to connect with me, it's the website is thejewishstripper.com. I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, I'm on YouTube. It's on YouTube, it's the Jewish Stripper. And so if anybody is interested to connect with me, they can just go to the website, thejewishstripper.com. And I've had some interest in the book, so I'm looking at publishers or them still not feel like it's not finished, and it's been 6 years. So it's just a matter of finishing it up and editing it and so on, and deciding how to publish.
Yeah.
And thank you for your time and generosity.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you, John and
And to
Kurt.
you,
And Alla, it was
Thank you,
lovely
John,
meeting
Kurt.
you. Yep, it was lovely meeting you.
Thank you, Kurt, for the most wonderful description of me.
Yeah, I want to follow your story. I'm on your website right now, following your social media. I want to watch your story. I feel honored to be here June 19th, 2026, and watch where this is going to go. And Avenice, you're,
Oh yeah, and happy Juneteenth. Happy Juneteenth, Freedom Day.
Yeah, absolutely.
Elliot, I actually have one more question for you. Do you have any relatives up here in Massachusetts?
Do I?
Yeah.
Not that I'm aware of, but actually, potentially on my father's side, who's I don't use his last name. It's Samarov, Samarov.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Because
I possibly.
I worked for a company that some of the people who ran the company's last name was Kaplan.
Oh, no, I don't think so, because
And there's
I'm
even a
pretty much
doctor up
first
there.
generation here from Russia. So I only, as far as I know, there may be relatives on my father's side who I don't really have a relationship with, and it's a different name. So, in any case,
I just had asked that.
Yeah. In any case, I wish I was, responsible for, what was it, the school, the Kaplan, not Kaplan
Yeah.
University, I forget the name, but everybody would ask me, are you related to the Kaplan school? And I'm like, I wish I'd be a millionaire.
All right. Well, thank you, ladies, for coming
Thank you.
Once
tonight.
again, thank you.
Avenice
It's
gave me
been
a lot
fun.
of ideas too.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad. I'm delighted. I'm sure we'll connect on the line or somewhere
Hopefully we connect,
Okay.
we all connect again.
for sure.
We will. We'll have to
Thank
do
you,
a repeat of
everybody.
this, like Kurt said.
All right.
Thank you for coming.
Thank
Kurt,
you.
any
you.
last
Bye.
You're
words?
welcome. All right. Bye, Kirk. Bye,
Bye.
John. Take care. All
All
right.
right.
Bye,
Thanks,
Ella.
everybody.
Okay,
Good
bye.
show. Looking
Bye.
forward to next week's show as well, live at 5 every Friday. So,
I'll have to start watching it.
yeah, you bet. June 26th, the next day.
I'll have to watch that story.